Liver transplants are a life-saving procedure, but they have an unfortunately high failure rate. First OLTX, orthotopic liver transplantation, failure rates were just under 20% from 1981 to 1989, and more modern numbers don't improve by more than a couple percentage points. There are, however, things you can do to improve your odds. You can eat healthier, exercise more, cut back on drinking, or be white? According to the paper Effective Race Upon Organ Donation and Recipient Survival in Liver Transplantation, a black individual receiving their first liver from a white individual is twice as likely to have that transplant fail as a white person receiving their first liver from a black individual. But the paper's authors and top experts don't believe that race has a significant factor in transplant outcomes. How is that possible? Today, we're going to be going over the racial impact of transplants and the math that explains it. Other studies have less dramatic results, but still concerning results. For example, in racial ethnic disparity in kidney transplantation outcomes, they found that the 5-year allograft survival rate was 72% for whites and 59% for blacks, meaning white people were 13% more likely to survive. This study also doesn't think it's about a racial impact, but instead about confounding variables. One of these big confounding variables is the distribution of need. In 2002, end-stage renal disease, ESRD, made up 6.7% of Medicare costs, or $17 billion. People with ESRD either need to have a transplant or dialysis for the rest of their life. So transplants are very important for these people. But let's look at the racial makeup of the prevalence per million of end-stage renal disease. Here is what we would expect if the distribution of ESRD was flat. The actual number might be off by a couple hundred. I couldn't find the exact data set Higgins and Fishman were working from, so this number is cross-referenced with census data from the time, so it's my math, it could be off a little, but what's important is that flat distribution, and we should see that or something close to it if there wasn't a racial impact on end-stage renal disease. But as you can see, the actual distribution is very much not flat. African Americans are 4 times as likely as Caucasians to have end-stage renal disease. Native Americans are over twice as likely. Hispanic people are almost twice as likely. This is one of the major factors that the study was running into, the current health of the recipient. The major confounding variable was Uno. Uno is an American shedding-type card game originally developed in 1971 by Merle Robbins in Reading, Ohio, a suburb of Cincinnati, that housed International Games Inc., a gaming company that would later be acquired by Mattel on January. Oh, UNOS. UNOS is the United Network for Organ Sharing, and they do a majority of matching people for transplants. UNOS urgency status has changed a little bit since this paper was written. But at the time, it was a simple 1 means you don't need a lot of intervention to be stable, and 6 means you need immediate intervention in order to be stable. They found that their black patients in the study were more likely to be in the 4 to 6 or more severe situation than their white counterparts, so they were more likely to experience organ failure. They also point out that with the study, it doesn't even matter if it is because of their pre-existing health conditions. See, here's where that math I promised at the beginning comes in. I was a little misleading with that opening data. As you can see from this graph, one of the big issues is the amount of black donors and black receivers is very low. Black recipients make up only 1/17 of overall donation. In Racial Disparities in Organ Donation and Why, the paper's authors list 4 major reasons why black people are underrepresented in donation. Mainly fear of racism, decreased awareness of transplantation, religious or cultural distrust of medicine and the medical community in general, and fear of medical abandonment. I found that last one really personally intriguing because I had an ethics course this semester and I had a discussion with an individual who refuses to be an organ donor over fear that they would receive worse care in specific situations. So, in conclusion, it does not appear that there are biological factors affecting transplant outcomes, but instead the normal, kind of boring answers of social and cultural impact of race. Thanks for watching.